Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back to talk about the Amazing Race 34, episode 7, and very excited to talk about it here with our chief Amazing Race correspondent. She puts the fun in fun employed. It's Jessica Liese. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. I'm just going to stay cool, calm, cute, and collected through this
Yes,
whole ordeal.
you got to. You got
You
to.
just got to.
Okay. All right. So hopefully everybody out here is pumped up for an amazing race recap. Sad to say, Mike Bloom cannot be with us here tonight. He's got some people who are at his house not feeling well. So Mike being a great dad, helping to hold down the fort. So Mike will be back with us next week for talking about the next week's episode of The Amazing Race. But just fun one to talk about, even though sad to see Glenda and Lumumba go out.
And I'm really going to miss them, Rob. I don't know. I don't know what this race looks like without them. And honestly, this is a cast full of very positive people. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's a lot of really, really good energy. And
Yeah.
I feel like 2 weeks in a row, we have lost really, really upbeat, positive teams.
Yeah, this was a very well cast season of The Amazing Race.
Mhm.
And so they have made it very fun, even though I think that maybe some of the tasks weren't super exciting this week. The people have made this fun.
Yeah, there's really very few duds in this cast, and that's pretty remarkable considering we started with extra people.
Okay, so Justin and I have an exit interview with Glenda and Lumumba. You can go ahead and check that out. They were, of course, as you would expect, very fun to talk to.
They were great.
Yeah.
I think we could have gone another hour with them easily.
Yeah, they are like such an interesting couple. Of course, they had like the very like harrowing moment with crashing the car into the ditch. And they told us in the exit interview, Jess, about how it was actually much worse and more dramatic in real life. Why do you feel like that the show made it seem like it was like less of a big thing?
Because I think, Rob, this is not something that happens very often. And
Hmm.
I think maybe we spend too much time on this, and you could face some accusations that the show is not looking out for the safety of its contestants.
Yes, yes.
This is
'Cause
not the early 2000s anymore, Rob. We
right,
care.
right. No, that because from like, the accounts of Glenda and Lumumba, it made it sound like like their lives were on the line. Now, maybe again, maybe it seemed to them more harrowing than it might have been, but I think the show made it like no big thing. We were off the road for 5 minutes.
Yep, just go into the ditch like you do.
Yep. And so, Jess, I would love to know what sort of precedent is there on the Amazing Race for, basically the car going off the road.
Well, Robert, I'm glad you asked me that question,
Yes.
because in season 7, there was an incident that was, if you're just going on what the show showed you, it
Hmm.
was way, way worse. Like there was an incident. I think they were in Botswana, I want to say, and Brian and Greg, they were this team of brothers. One of them went on to have a regular role on The Big Bang Theory. So
Yes. Okay. Yes.
yeah,
I
you remember
remember.
these guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they drove their car. They
It's
flipped.
good. I'm glad that this isn't like the drinking game of like, can Jess or Mike make up a fake Amazing Race anecdote and get it past Rob?
Yeah, Rob. I don't feel like I'm that creative anymore. I leave all the really creative stuff to Mike Bloom these days
Hmm. Yeah.
because he's the one that's going to show up in a crazy outfit.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah. Anyway, they they actually flipped their car a couple of times, as I recall, injured a cameraman really badly,
Yes.
and ended up, like, I think the car was undrivable and they had to wait for a replacement car. And this was a voiceover that Phil used to give. I think I wouldn't say often, but you would hear it like once a season or so. Like, if your car becomes inoperable, you can wait for a replacement car, but it will cost you that much time. Um,
Hmm.
it was a thing that happened, like your car might break down and you might have to get another car. There was a very famous episode where everybody had diesel cars and they put unleaded gasoline in the tank,
Mm-hmm.
um, and wrecked all of their cars. There was one where they had to drive around in these little East German communist cars that broke down very easily,
Yeah.
and they had a trailer that just like followed behind them with a bunch of replacement cars on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back in the day.
Back in the day. But
Yes.
and we've seen fender benders, but I think there's very few times we've seen actual like potentially life-threatening automobile accidents on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, what happened? Did we cut the budget with that? We don't have AAA standing by?
Yeah, or we just it's a different time now, Rob. I
Mm-hmm.
think back in the day, I think the suffering was the point.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the early aughts was a different time where we watched our television. We wanted to see people suffer. Like you know
Yeah.
this, Rob. This is when you were on television and people wanted to
Mm.
see you suffer.
Jess, this is an interesting thesis of that maybe like at the dawn of reality TV and maybe even scripted shows, like we wanted to watch television shows where we could see like what could go wrong. Now we know the answer to a lot of those questions and we want to see we don't want to see things going that much off the rails.
No,
Like
we want the mega happy ending all the time,
mm-hmm,
which is
mm-hmm,
why I think we're very blessed to have this
yeah.
particular Amazing Race cast because we're not getting we're not getting a lot of abject suffering from these people.
Okay. Jess, the Amazing Race took the teams to France for what will probably be 2 legs here in France. But my big question was, did Phil get a haircut this week?
He looked
He
older.
seemed freshly shorn.
Yeah, his hair was a different shape. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, I love Phil. Cannot say a bad word about Phil.
Yeah.
This was not the most flattering look for him.
Oh.
I really felt like I was watching him age before our eyes. Like it's
No.
really,
No.
he looked much older with this
Take it
haircut.
back. Take it back,
I mean,
Jess.
he is an attractive man at any age, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this haircut.
Yes. Okay. Boy, that cuts deeply because that it was only in the last couple days that I had a Twitter comment that said about a picture that I am aging rapidly. So don't want to
Oh,
Phil, I
Rob,
feel you. Yeah. But it's interesting that I don't know. Does Phil have a stylist on the set? Do you feel like?
he must. But
Mm-hmm.
also, when you've done the same job for 20 years, they probably let you, they probably leave you to your own devices a lot. Like, I
Yep.
feel like, and especially, Phil's on TV all the time. He knows what looks good and what doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe somebody just steered him wrong. Like, he usually does it himself, but somebody was like, hey, I know this great barber in Dodania. Why don't you check him
Mm-hmm.
out?
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Phil has a regular barber in France.
Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy who would have a barber in every country in the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Jess, did you happen to notice also? Are we masking up more after what happened with the COVID breakout with Abby and Will?
I think it also depends on the country, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that quite a bit more. Like when they're in civilization, they've got the masks on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like even like Glenn and Lamumba are driving the car and they have masks on. I know they're around the camera people also in the car. And I feel like that at a few other points, like people are coming over wearing masks. So I wonder if maybe like we have some like heightened protocols now.
Mhm. Well, could they maybe like I know they get assigned different camera people at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of every leg, and that's your camera person for that leg, and then they switch them up. Maybe they got Will and Abby's camera people, and they wanted to be careful.
Yeah. Maybe it's also, from back in the day when we used to do the Toughest Nails podcast, Phil used to talk about like, okay, who's in the green zone, who's in the yellow zone. I don't know if like, maybe if it's like, okay, if there's some sort of an outbreak on the cast, maybe there's other heightened protocols that they go to. But it's just one of the things that I noticed. But let's talk about this leg and the teams racing through France. I would love to get your feeling on how this leg was set up.
You know, it was I don't know, it was I used to have a professor who used to refer to like pop culture figures as he would refer to a pop culture figure as a 7, and this was on the pH scale. Like a 7 is like
Okay.
not too
Yes.
basic, not too acidic.
Okay.
A 7 is right in the
When
middle,
you
like
said
that's
pop
neutral
culture
water.
figures, I thought you were talking about like dolls. You're talking about like
Like,
actual
yeah, like
people, famous
celebrities. Yeah.
people. Yes.
Famous
Okay.
people. Like
Yes.
you would refer to somebody as being a 7 when they're exactly the right amount of famous.
Okay.
Like they're
Give
not
a
overrated or underrated.
oh, okay. All right. I thought
So
you were gonna
I
say in
feel
terms
like
of like their like the public's approval rating of people was like a base pH. But you say this is dealing with the right amount of famous.
I think that was what it was. It was the right amount of famous. Somebody is neither overrated nor underrated. They are a 7, and that's how I felt about this leg. Like it was a 7. It was fine. I can't point to anything. I don't have a list of notes of like how this leg could have been improved. It's not broken,
Mm-hmm.
but it also like none of these tasks really set me on fire. They were fine.
Mm-hmm.
They looked like they'd be fun to do, but they're not. I'm not going to remember this leg in 2 years.
Yeah, probably not. I thought that the roadblock actually was a little bit more like visually stimulating than the tasks from the detour, which we'll talk about. But it seems like that where teams really got hung up the most was in the self-driving. That seemed like that was the ultimate difference maker in how the teams finished in this episode.
Yeah, this was old school Amazing Race. There
Hmm.
used to be so much more of this, and it stands out because we haven't had it. Like up until the start of the pandemic, for the last few seasons before that, people were almost never called upon to navigate for themselves. And now that's all you have to do. And I kind of like that better. I like that there's a travel element to this travel show.
Hmm. Okay. So we got some setup here about the teams and how they were leaving, who they were working with. Derek and Claire talked about how they've already lost a reality show once, and we got into about how Derek F is he is without a career right now.
Wasn't that's the wrong Derek, Rob.
I'm sorry.
Even I
Sorry.
know
I'm
that.
sorry. You know what? I'm
Even
sorry.
I know
First off, all
that.
right. First off, in fairness to me, like it's been a long 24 hours. Okay. Second, he did say the F. The
Yes.
F in
Yes, I
fun
get I
employed
get where I came
was
from.
silent. That's the Freudian slip here. Okay.
Yep.
That's so when Derek X starts talking about F's being silent, I'm sorry. I conjured up Derek F.
I hear you, Rob. I hear you.
Give me the F.
Yep. And also, in Derek's case, he's lost 2 reality shows in the
Yeah, at
past
this
year.
point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just piling up.
Yes. So what's the difference between being unemployed and being fun employed? Is it your enjoyment level?
Yeah, like I think do you want a job
Hmm.
is the delimiter here. Like I'm unemployed if I'm actively looking for work and unhappy about my circumstances. I'm fun employed if I'm treating it as a nice vacation between gigs.
I feel like that Derek X seems fun employed.
Yeah, well, he's got some consolation prize reality show money. He's got a
Hmm.
nice nest egg. He's got a girlfriend with a steady gig. He can
Hmm.
kind of relax. He can wait for the right opportunity. I think that's an enviable position. And
Sure.
it's really a buyer's market when it comes to jobs these days. The
Hmm.
great resignation.
Yeah.
People are, there's lots of stuff open. People are not going to have to take the first thing that comes along.
Okay.
When did this become an economics podcast, Rob?
I don't know. Look, we're gonna cover everything here on the Amazing
Yep,
Race. Okay.
that's what we do.
I thought one of the things that was interesting was Derek X and Claire wanted to try to get Luisa Michelle to follow them.
Well, Derek did. Claire
Um,
was not about this
okay.
life.
All right. Is this a sound strategy? Get the other teams to follow you.
Well, he makes the very good point that if they are going the wrong way and they get lost, they are not lost by themselves,
Yeah.
which, we saw a team lost by themselves, and where did that get them?
Mm-hmm.
So at least you can run it out with somebody if you end up lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad idea. Um, I didn't hate that.
Yeah. Do we have a like a JL rule on, I feel like this comes up so much on like, do you want to stick with the pack or, hey, we're here to run our own race?
Well, I think it depends on how confident you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can't hurt, especially at the top of a leg. It can't hurt to stick with the pack for a while and look for your moment, as Derek and Claire, like we'll talk about in a minute, as they did.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the top of the leg, when there's not, we have a little bit of more room to maneuver, I think that's a great time to work with other teams and to get yourself ahead far enough so that you can look for your moment to break away from the pack.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about Emily and Molly?
Sure.
That really, their story is so amazing.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable about how they've been separated their entire lives, and they have all of these like little like idiosyncrasies that they find out are like, oh my god, I thought I was the only person in the world that does this. Let me play this clip of them.
And we're learning a lot about one another. In 5th grade, I got in trouble for kissing my boyfriend on the playground.
Okay.
I also got in trouble in 5th grade for kissing my boyfriend.
Okay, I mean, it happens, right?
Sure.
Probably not that uncommon. Okay. Young girls in 5th grade might get in trouble for that. Okay. Keep going.
And we were also both in band in middle school. We both played wind instruments, and we were both second chair.
All right, Jess. Second chair wind instruments in the band. On the
wind
PH scale.
instruments.
Yeah. How from likely to unlikely.
I mean, wind instruments are half the band.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a surprise there. Wind instruments also skew female, so also not a surprise
What about
there.
second chair?
Second chair, it depends on how big the band is, but that's like, that's probably a 1 in 8 shot.
Okay. All right. Not that implausible, but
not that implausible.
Okay. But how about this one?
We both like to eat hard-boiled eggs in the morning.
Okay.
All
right. That's the thing. Okay.
2 of them.
Two hard-boiled eggs. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then, but this is where things get really weird.
Yes.
1 yolk, and we each feed our dog the second yolk. Yes. So weird.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, I've never heard of this. You make hard-boiled eggs, and then you eat 1 whole egg, and then 1 egg white, and then now see, I might say, okay, I'm watching my cholesterol. I'll throw the other yolk out. You feed a egg yolk to a dog.
Well, Rob, you have a dog.
I wouldn't give it an egg yolk.
Egg yolks are good for dogs.
Are they?
They're high in protein.
I guess so. I'm very nervous to upset the dog's digestive tract.
I mean, an egg is good for their coat. I think that's the egg white that's good for their coat, though. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They fed when my son was a baby, the daycare would feed them egg yolk, like just egg yolk by itself, not the whole egg.
Like from like a hard-boiled egg, or that
unclear.
Yes.
I was never there to witness it. It was on the menu as egg yolk.
But they both this one I thought was eerie. Okay,
yeah, that is eerie.
They both eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, and they both throw out the yolk and give it to the dog.
There have been cases of twins separated at birth who do weird things like this and find these weird idiosyncrasies in common.
Mm-hmm.
There was a famous case of these guys. I think they found each other in the 70s, and they'd both married women with the same first name, divorced those women, and then married different women that also had the same first name as each other. They drove the same kind of car. They named their dogs the same things.
Yeah.
It's, I do not know how to explain it, but it is a little uncanny.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. That was weird.
Very weird.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, but I'm so happy they found each other.
Yeah, it's such a great story. Like, this is the best Amazing Race team dynamic since Dating 12 Years Virgins.
Is that real?
That's real.
That's you're not making
Season
that up?
4. Again, Rob, it was a different time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the holdup? Why didn't they get married?
They never did get married.
Oh.
They broke up after the race.
Oh, okay. So that was really the turning point, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they realized some things about themselves while they were running the race together.
All right, Jess. Our teams were headed off to the roadblock. That ultimately directions are going to play such a big part in this episode.
Yeah, you really needed to be on point with your D6 and your different French highway system knowledge.
Yep. How are you with that? You would be good.
I don't drive, so I'd probably be terrible.
Mm-hmm. But you'd be
I
the navigator.
Yeah,
You'd have
I
the
mean,
map.
I can read a map, but
Mm-hmm.
I think like the European highway system, like the way things are named, is not as intuitive. I think if you're used to driving on American roads, so
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably tripped up a lot of people.
Yeah. I feel like that for Michael and Marcus, I feel like that this is like the one area, like they're really not that great with the tasks. And they certainly have had their share of tasks that they've been able to do well, especially when it's like a strength task of like, move the cheese and like get it to places. But it seems like, they struggle, I feel like a lot of times with the detours but they make up a lot of time with their directions.
Yeah, well, they say the experience as a tank commander apparently makes you very good at maps.
I guess so. So yeah, they're like the anti-joys.
This was actually kind of uncanny, and especially like the show did not dwell on this very heavily, but you see them at the first task drop down several places in the rankings. Like they leave middle of the pack and they get there, and a few teams get there after them and leave before them.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're back up in first place all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this is down to very, very good navigation. Like they found a shortcut or something.
Yeah.
But it's not terribly clearly explained on the show.
Jess, let's talk about the climb the family tree roadblock that the teams had to do. Okay. What'd you think of this task?
I think it was interesting. I think they made very good use of things that were already there at this tourist attraction.
Yes.
And they found a way. Like Amazing Race Canada is also very good at this. Like you look at a museum display and let's develop something based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think combining it with a more dynamic thrill-based task made it an interesting thing to watch. I think if it had just been memorize this and go over there and recite it from memory, that is really boring. But rappelling is something that, sometimes you get somebody with a fear of heights. Sometimes you get people in the harness the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
It has a potential to be a very interesting way to go.
Jess, that we saw Michelle was the first person of Louise and Michelle to say, hey, I'm just going to go through this as fast as possible. I just need to get down the wall so I can go see what the questions are. I'm not going to spend any time looking at the thing before I know what the questions are. Have we seen this a lot before on The Amazing Race?
We've not seen it as much as we should see it, Rob.
Yeah, well, it seemed like there were a lot of teams that were doing that in this roadblock.
Yeah, I think that it's like they all figured it out at once. I mean, maybe more of it happens than we see, but I feel like it's never been called out. Like it's never been underlined in quite this way.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I was surprised at, here's my question, is the first time you go down, like obviously you don't know what they're going to ask, but is there any harm to just like throwing out a guess, like just in case you get it right? The odds that you would stumble upon like all 5 things in all 5 correct places, they are 1 in 120, but that's not 1 in a million. Like that's not bad.
Yeah. Is there any sort of like a time penalty if you guess wrong?
I don't think so. I think the only time penalty was in getting back up there and getting back into the thing and coming back down.
Were they telling you if you had any right, or was it just like a thumbs up or thumbs down?
I think it was thumbs up or thumbs down.
It wasn't like, gentlemen, do I have 1 flag right?
Bing!
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think, and some of them, some of them do that and some of them don't, but it looked like this one was just right or wrong, but we didn't see a lot of people make a genuine guess and get it wrong. So it was hard to tell.
Michael was having some issues here.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Really, a lot of different issues for a team that ultimately ends up finishing in first place.
Yeah, I think the error of looking at all of the men's names and not looking at any of the women.
Michael. Come on.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to do that, like, don't admit it to the camera so that you end up having it said on TV.
Yeah. So yeah, that was problem number one. He only checked out the men's names. But before that, he didn't even know where to look for the names.
Yeah, that was also a problem. He seemed like he was a little bit turned around this leg.
Yes. And then at the end, after they got it, that they realized that he left the keys to the car at the top of like the castle.
Yeah, that's a mess. Like, that is a hot mess.
Yeah. I would be so upset if that happened.
I'd be more upset if I was Marcus.
Sure. And again, I always love that like sibling rivalry where, unlike the other siblings that never have disagreed once, Emily and Molly, there's a lot of tension between Michael and Marcus. And then when they realize that, I might have left the keys up at the top of the thing, that was a great moment. I would hate that so much.
And it's also like doubly selfish. I believe he's the older sibling, and I believe he kind of lords it over Marcus a little bit. So that makes it kind of even sweeter.
Yeah, I have, left my phone upstairs. Like, I have to go upstairs to get the phone. It's that's one of the worst feelings.
Yeah, it's the. Well, I mean, I have an Apple Watch solely because I ask it where my phone is several times a day.
Yeah,
so I feel that.
Yeah. All right. So we had all the teams heading through. Any other memorable moments during the climb the family tree roadblock?
I mean, Glenda and Lumumba.
Well, yes, they'll get there. I feel like
we'll get there. We kind of have to talk about them. Yeah.
Yes.
They ran their own leg of the race.
They ran their own race for sure. Yeah.
I mean, they said that was their strategy, and that's what they did this leg.
They were 15 minutes behind the third place teams, or the teams that left in that third heat. How big of a deal do you feel like in this particular leg of the race was the 15 minutes?
It didn't seem like it mattered at all. And it goes back to what we were saying last week. Like, it could be like when they keep saying it's 45 minutes, like that does seem like a death sentence, but 15 minutes, these are very tight, very, very tight legs of the race that we're running these days. But there was enough self-driving that somebody could really get screwed up.
Yeah. Not to sound too much like, old people podcasts. But despite what that guy said on Twitter, back in my day, they used to, if you came in last, you forget 15 minutes. You had to go do a whole other task. And they called that a speed bump.
Oh, the good old days, Rob. Yeah, I remember those. I did want to talk about this a little bit because Glenda and Lumumba, I mean, is it spoiling anything to say that we've already had our exit interview with them?
Definitely
and
not.
We've spoken to them already, and they raised something interesting. I wanted to talk this through with you because I thought it was something that you don't see on Amazing Race very often, and it's something to consider.
Yes.
In the previous leg, the elimination happened at the top of the leg, and Phil said nobody's getting eliminated on this leg because somebody already did. And so when Glenda and Lumumba dropped to the back of the pack, they didn't have to worry that they were going to come in last and be done with their race because they already knew they were getting a mulligan. So they kind of took their sweet time on that final task last week because they're really only going to be like, they could
building the cart.
Yeah, building the cart. They could finish 5 minutes behind the previous team, or they could finish an hour behind the previous team, and it's still only going to be
Doesn't
15
matter.
minutes
Yeah.
behind them when they start.
Right.
So I thought that's a unique situation they were in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we were saying on the podcast last week, like, yeah, they picked up time by having this penalty.
Yeah, they definitely did.
This was a gift. This wasn't a penalty.
Yeah. But I do think, and I think they sort of confirmed this, like, had they not driven their car into a ditch, they might have had a shot at picking it back, at getting back in there.
No doubt. No doubt. The ditch seemed like that was the biggest issue. I mean, the episode really painted it like this was kind of neck and neck, but Glenda and Lumumba they were getting the montage.
Yeah, they were definitely in montage territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. They're going to be the last team to depart. I guess that we could talk about like they head out. Okay. They're able to. It seems like that. They're trying to make up some ground. I mean, do you feel like that because they were already like at the back of the pack, they might have been, trying to make up some time, and that was ultimately why they ended up in the ditch?
Well, it looked to me like they had gone the wrong way. And what it looked like happened was they were going the wrong way on this little dirt road.
Yeah.
And Glenda decides to turn around and go back the other way. And so she starts this K-turn and thinks that you can kind of go a little bit off the road there, thinking that it's just solid grass. And it turns out that it is not grass. It is a ditch. And that's when she ends up going off the road because she thought she had some shoulder there.
Yeah. How did they ultimately get the car back? That was like a plow. What did they use?
It was a tractor.
A tractor.
Yep.
I guess this happens often enough that the old lady was there.
Yeah, I think she might happen often enough, like especially if it's a road that people accidentally go down a lot. She probably just has to wait out there all day with her tractor pulling people out of the ditch when they realize they've gone the wrong way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for Glenda and Lumumba, luckily, they were safe. They were fine. They were able to get over to where they needed to be so that we could see. This was all Lumumba episode of working on these tasks.
Yeah. He's the MVP for sure.
He was the MVP. All right. Lumumba is going to go and be the person to rappel down from the castle. Let's listen in to Glenda and Lumumba.
Wow, this is gorgeous. Wow. Oh my goodness.
Be careful, babe. I just wanted to make sure that the harness was on correctly so there were no issues.
I need him protected because we're trying for a baby as we speak. Woo! Careful, babe, because I need those swimmers working so Boom Boom can get here safely.
Yes.
Who knew we were getting a Shamir shout out in this episode?
Yes. Okay. Well, this came up in our exit interview with Glenda and Lumumba. We talked about this moment, and it was Glenda that referenced Jess. Of course, something a famous moment from our Amazing Race podcasting history of the issue with the harness.
I mean, those harnesses are no joke, Rob. Although we certainly tried to make them into one.
Yes, and famously, that some people from that cast were upset with us.
Rob, I don't know if I've ever told this on the air, and I think I can tell it on the air now. Enough time has passed. Yeah. So probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a year or so out from us covering that season. I was out to eat with my family at a restaurant in Chelsea, and we're eating, and there's a guy sitting across the room, like looks very familiar, and he's kind of looking over like he knows me, and he's kind of like not happy about it, like sort of shooting daggers at me, and I look over and I'm like, I know that guy. Where do I know that guy from? And like probably 20 minutes after we left, I'm like, oh, that was Shamir. And I don't know if I was imagining it, but he might have clocked that it was me, and he might not have been happy to see me.
Yeah. This is like, wait, what is it? It was the blind date.
Yeah,
season?
29.
Okay, 29. And was it the premiere? Let's see.
No, it was the second episode.
Second episode. And oh yeah, okay, good. So I keep such detailed records, Jess. And so Yes. Okay. So here was some of what went on where that we've seen Amazing Racers. Do you remember what the task was or where they
Yes.
were? Yes.
They were on a skyscraper and they had to wash a window.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like somebody broke a window.
Okay. Yeah. And these are the types of things that can happen on the Amazing Race.
Mhm.
Shamir, you're angry.
Very angry. I was stuck by my balls hanging.
I can't believe you still have that.
Well, I keep everything in folders for based on the season.
For occasions such as
and,
these.
yeah. And so he was implying that maybe there was something wrong with the harness, Phil.
Shamir, you're angry.
Very angry. I was stuck by my balls hanging. Real funny.
Well,
Was Phil
I don't
laughing?
know. Have you not worn a harness before? Is that what?
No, I have not.
Even for experienced people doing it, it can happen from time to time.
It was really painful.
I believe that
I
we went into this in great detail.
Yes, I stand by. This is funny. This is funny. And you know what? You know what, Shamir? Tragedy plus time equals comedy. Even you can agree.
It's probably funnier now than it was
It's
then.
funnier now. It's funnier now. And I hope he has fathered many children. If he wants, that's what he wants.
Yeah,
Okay. I
it's-
hope that
it's
the
his choice.
swimmers are all okay. And you can laugh now. But not at the time, Jess, because
No.
I don't even know how much we talked about this on the podcast. That we received word
From one of his
from
castmates.
cast members. Hey, this wasn't funny. Why were you making this a joke? A man's organs were harmed, or at
And
least squeezed. Yeah.
It's like, have you seen the bulk of American humor from like 1985 to the present?
Mhm.
It's all nut shots.
Yeah.
My balls hurt. What do you want me to do?
How many sound clips did you save from
Oh,
this, Rob?
Jess, we're not even halfway done.
Oh, Jesus.
Ah! Oh my God. Yo, my testicle is about to rupture. Like, I need your help. I need to get down.
See, I mean that luckily, Lumumba had no problems. That he did not.
Yeah.
He did not feel like anything was off there, and that
No.
and to much to Glenda's chagrin, right?
Much to her relief, I think
Relief.
Boom Boom will not be compromised.
Yes. Yes.
I think his junk is hurting him right now.
A couple
Let's
more.
just hope
I
tragedy.
think my testicles are swollen. For real.
I like when Phil was like, "Well, this does happen with people who wear a harness." Luckily, this never came up on Tough as Nails.
So far.
Mm-hmm.
But
No.
all these people, the people on Tough as Nails, if they hurt their area like that, they would not say anything about it because they are, tough as nails.
They're tough as nails. Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
So, it was a great moment. Like Glenda references, she's like, she's like, that happened once. I'm like, oh yeah, we know.
We know. How could we forget?
We never forgot. And then we also got people got mad at us
Yeah, never forget.
because we laughed at it. We were laughing at the time.
That's the last time. I think that is literally the last time I can remember somebody getting properly mad at us from the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're doing pretty well, Rob. That was 5 seasons ago. We got in 5 whole seasons without like an angry diatribe. So
Yeah, pretty good.
patting myself on the back.
Doing
here.
pretty good. Even though Shamir got the walnut cracker. All right.
And again, we are sorry, Shamir.
We're sorry. Sorry,
I know
not
it was serious
yeah.
at the time.
We're sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got derailed, but that was fun. That was fun, Jess.
It was a trip down memory lane for
Mhm.
sure.
Yes. Okay. Basically, all the teams are working to get through it. We're gonna see Derek X that he doesn't have a great memory, but he's able to pull it out.
Yeah, he did all right.
Mm-hmm.
I liked his whole, like, he told himself a story in his head,
Mm-hmm.
which seemed to work well for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Other players, they had to remember the names in different ways. Then we saw Lumumba. He had a unique way of how he was going to do things.
The second time, I knew exactly who I was looking for. I was over there doing everything I could to remember Chappelle like a lion. It was like, Chappelle. If I had done that one more time, you'd probably see me doing the
Yeah.
funky chicken or the electric slide to get those names.
Chappelle is like a lion.
I cannot wait for my next Walking Dead podcast. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to refer to him as Chappelle, like a lion.
Yeah. He's not a Leo.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
So
what he is, but
I believe he's an Aries.
okay.
I hope I got that right.
Yeah. Do you know everybody's zodiac signs, Rob?
I don't. I know he often talks about it though.
Ah, okay. That makes
Mhm.
sense.
That the more people talk about it, the more likely I am to remember it.
Yep, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yes. But I just that cracked me up with the way that Lumumba is Chappelle like a lion.
It's classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. That was the extent of Climb the Family Tree. So I thought that this was a stronger first half of the episode. And then we got to our detour, which I kind of felt like Jess was teetering on the brink of giving office team building workshop at the park.
We're not quite at season 24 Shave a Balloon levels of awful, but I will say maybe this plays different if you don't watch as much Survivor as people in RHAP Nation do,
Mm-hmm.
because one half of this detour was do a bunch of Survivor challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I did think that the medieval games came off a little bit more low rent than the walnut cracker.
Which the walnut cracker looked like, you could buy a bunch of kitchen tools from IKEA.
Yeah. So most teams seemed like that they were going to start with the walnuts.
Yeah, and I think Derek and Claire have articulate this really well. And one thing
Mhm.
I am really enjoying about this season is that people are articulating their strategy, I think, in ways that were not quite as blatant in
Mhm.
previous seasons. And so you have Derek and Claire saying, like, on screen, the walnuts are going to take everyone the exact same amount of time. So we could do that and we know when we'll be done. But why not take a risk and do the gaming task and maybe try to jump ahead of a few of these people?
Yeah. And of course, as the teams mentioned, the two detour challenges were basically right next to each other.
Yeah.
Just that, do you feel like, is that like an advantage for the TV show that when like, because I feel like that maybe as a viewer, I kind of like when the teams switch detours, like really not knowing what the other detour is. But do you think that the show likes it when teams are able to like easily switch from one detour to the other?
Well, I think it's tempting. I think you could get a team, and I don't know why I'm going back into deep Amazing Race lore so many times, but we got to go back to season 13,
Yes.
where there were two halves of a detour that were centered around the Russian military. So,
Okay.
unlikely to see this as a switchback,
Sure.
setting this up. So we had this
Mhm.
team, Dan and Andrew. We called them Dandrew. They were shockingly incompetent and still managed to make the finals.
Mhm.
And in this particular leg, one of the tasks was serve a bunch of soup to people,
Soup.
which was the task that would take you like the exact same amount of time for everybody.
Mhm.
And then there was a task that was march in formation with these soldiers. And these guys could not march in formation to save their lives. And they tried and tried. And so they switched back to the soup and realized this was going to take them forever, went back and tried to march again and went back a few times. And because the two tasks were right next to each other, they got in this sort of negative feedback loop of like, they would try it for a few minutes and then they'd panic and try the other one. And I think maybe whenever we have these two detour options next to each other, the show is kind of secretly hoping for a Dandrew marching moment.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they want. And so I think it's sort of like fueled by, okay, well, it's probably like cheaper, like just to set up one area of like, okay, let's have
Oh,
the two
sure.
things right here and have like one base camp for our production. But I do feel like that in terms of like, the outcome of getting teams to be switching, that I do think it's potentially a win-win.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of upside to that.
Mhm.
And especially you also don't get people choosing a task by default solely because it's the one they know how to get to.
So do you think that the optimal strategy is that if two detours are close enough together, should you go check out both or at least have a very quick hook from whatever it is that you pick first?
Yeah, I think so. There's not a lot of downside to taking like 2 extra minutes to look at what the tasks are, especially if you're not in first place,
Mhm.
you're not the first person to get there. Like, see what kind of time everybody's having with it.
Can you okay, so you open the thing and you rip open the detour and then you have to pick, okay, walnut juice or medieval games, walnut cracker was.
Yeah, Walnut
And
Cracker, Medieval Gamer.
and so you have to say which one you're going to first. You can't just like, can I go see what they have? It's not like I like to take a lap when I get to a buffet, Jess, and see like before I start putting stuff on my plate. I want to do a
Well,
lap of the whole place.
I'm honestly not sure about this, Rob. I don't think you have to declare. With a roadblock, you have to declare. When you open the roadblock,
Is
it
that?
asks you
Oh,
the
you mean the
question.
portmanteau for Derek X Sinclair?
Yes, Rob, that's
Mhm.
exactly what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
With the roadblock, you open it up and you have to say who's going to do it before you find out the particulars of it. With a
Mhm.
detour, I don't think you have to make that decision because we've also seen teams open a detour clue and decide they're going to go to one, and then they find the other one and they're like, well, we're here, we might as well do that one. We've seen that a
Mhm.
million times. And I think this is the same thing. Like, you don't have to decide which one you're going to do as long as you do one of them.
Mhm.
So you could even like you could do a straw poll, like go over and see how people are doing at one, and then like, oh, if they're having an
Hey,
easy time.
Everett, should we do this one? Or what do you guys think? Should we jump in? No,
I've seen
Okay,
that
yeah,
happen though.
yeah.
We've seen that happen. Like,
Like,
how
oh,
is
no.
this? Like, especially as you see teams leaving, like if
It's
a
a
team's
real
leaving the
bear.
task, like, yeah, this killed me. And
It'll be your funeral.
yeah, pretty much.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So teams have to go gather the walnuts, put them into the walnut cracker to make the coveted walnut oil.
Yeah, Marcus and Michael again have an interesting moment here where they're not sure what a walnut grove is.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just that they see all these trees everywhere and they're not sure like if there's a marked off grove of some sort or if they have to pick the walnuts or what. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of shocking that this team is the team that ends up winning the leg.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't, other than driving the car, they really were not that good at anything that happened in this episode, but yet here they are, team number one.
Just goes to show you anything can happen on the race and you need a wide variety of skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it seemed like a good moment for Derek and Claire. Did this end up being some, emergent gameplay to do what they did?
I mean, I think we've seen this happen a few times before where everybody is zigging. You might as well zag and see if you can make up the time. And more often than not, I think it does play out well for you,
Mm-hmm.
unless the other task is something terrible. And this was not terrible. This was, if you've seen any number of Survivor seasons, you have seen these tasks in action before, and those people are starving and they manage to do them.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of our teams in a little bit more detail. We talked about Glenda and Lumumba. Ultimately, this episode really, was a nice send off for them. Not a lot of drama around Glenda and Lumumba being the team that got eliminated. Especially once they crashed their car in the ditch.
Yeah, don't crash your car in a ditch. I feel like that's in the JL rules.
Yep. Okay. Anything else that you want to say about the recently eliminated Glenda and Lumumba?
I mean, I love those guys.
Mhm.
I want to say they should come back for All Stars, but I also want them to go on to repopulate the earth.
Yes, yes. Focus on Boom Boom. They have a
Yes.
lot. They have a lot of things they need to do. Okay, let's talk a little bit about David and Aubrey, who um, did not have a particularly memorable episode until we got to like the last 20 minutes, and they kind of got into a big argument over driving and which way to go. Felt like that David was doing a little bit of map splaining this week, Jess.
Is that a thing, Rob? Map splaining?
It is now.
Wow.
You didn't like that? Map splaining?
Talk about emergent gameplay here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the opposite of backseat driving. Because
Mhm.
backseat driving is when you're not driving and you tell somebody how to drive. So
Yeah.
what is it called if you are driving and you're telling the person who's navigating how to navigate?
It's like, hey, well, why don't you give better directions?
Yeah, they were getting frustrated with each other. And
Mhm.
we're getting glimpses of how they got cast. Because
Mhm.
this is a team that's been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten to know them. Maybe now that there are fewer teams, we'll have more of a chance to see what they're all about, but I really haven't gotten as much of a read on them. Like, I feel like Aubrey is snarky. I feel like she's very funny, but we don't get a lot of that.
But I kind of feel like that this was baked into the profile for David and Aubrey. Like I feel like, we've seen couples argue on The Amazing Race, and like that's not part of like the bio for them. Last season, our couple that got into, Akbar and Sherry last season. They were not advertised as like they're hot and cold. Like they have they're gonna they're gonna have some conflict. But I feel like that David and Aubrey, that kind of like was in their bio.
Yeah, I think that was, that's an archetype. That's a team we get every season almost. Like, we didn't really have one last season. We had a team sort of try to step up to fill the void, but there's always a team that's a couple that argues with each other all the time. And sometimes it's like they genuinely should break up, and sometimes that's just their love language. And I think in Aubrey and David's case, I'm inclined to say it's the latter. Like, they just talk to each other that way, and that's how they communicate.
Yeah. Ultimately, it nearly cost them, maybe on a week where somebody doesn't drive their car into the ditch. Then perhaps David and Aubrey are not going to be moving on to the second leg in France.
Yeah, it was not a great leg for them.
All right. Anything else on David and Aubrey?
I don't think so, Rob. That's more than we usually get on David and Aubrey.
Yeah. All right. Then Luis and Michelle, they were looking to go back to back to back. Ultimately, they dropped down to fourth place. Actually, I'm actually Quentin and Maddie are fifth place. Let's I mentioned Luis and Michelle. Let's talk about them, and then I'll talk about Quentin and Maddie. Luis, announcer guy Luis, lives on.
I love announcer guy Luis.
That's
Definitely
great.
one of the breakout characters of the season.
One of the breakout characters, not to get too much into the previews, it looks like that he has a bromance brewing with Derek X.
This is, I don't want the two of them. I don't want to say that the two of them should split off and like start their own podcast, but especially because I don't want them competing with us. But I would listen to it.
Yeah. Also, that Luis could be the announcer for this podcast.
Certainly, like do we need like a Don Pardo?
Yeah. I think like epic movie trailer voice guy. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. So for Luis and Michelle, what went wrong for them this week after two back-to-back finishes?
It looked to me like some of it was navigation. Like, I didn't see them make one giant crucial mistake, and they seemed like they did fine at the tasks. I don't remember them doing something terrible. Like, they got through they did a great job on the roadblock, and the detour, they took the safe boring option. It must have been navigation for them. That's the only thing I can think of.
Also, I feel like that this was something, you talk about this a lot. This was not a leg of The Amazing Race where you could really make up a lot of time.
Right. And, we talked about it, like, it was probably theoretically possible to make up 15 minutes. So, it's not necessarily, we learned it's not possible to make up 15 minutes plus driving your car into a ditch, but I don't think much more than 15 minutes of wiggle room.
Jess, I'm on the Amazing Race wiki. Did we know that Aubrey and David were alternates for the Amazing Race
did know that.
34?
Yeah, I think Mike has brought that up a couple of
Yes.
times.
Do you think that there's anything to being alternates where maybe, you are not prepping for the race the same way that teams that know they are cast for the Amazing Race are prepping?
I don't know. That's an interesting thought, Rob. I would think in the COVID era, if you're an alternate for a reality show, you are preparing like you are going to go.
Yeah, I guess so. But I kind of also feel like it's like what's like we could be like learning to drive stick shift today, but are they really going to call us?
I think if you're that far along in casting, I think the minute CBS calls you
We
back,
could be taking a maps course today, but
the first time CBS calls you back after you've applied, I think you get into high gear just in case.
Yes.
Like,
Is that a
that's the
stick
move.
shift reference? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the move.
Mhm.
You start learning these things immediately because you can't learn them all between the time they tell you you're going and the time you go.
Yeah.
So the second you have an inkling, like, don't even worry about whether you're an alternate or not. Like, just start doing the things.
Okay. Quentin and Maddie. Another quiet week for Quentin and Maddie.
Yeah, they did fine. They didn't do anything remarkable. Like, they did the same strategy as Maddie did, and it worked.
Yep.
I think everything worked out fine for them.
Yep. Ultimately, 5th place for them. We know that they have struggled with navigation. I did think that Lumumba was a little shady when he said that he was hoping that maybe one of the teams drove to Germany.
Yes.
That was going to be their ace in the hole.
That was a little shady.
Yeah. Okay. But, Lumumba can get away with it. He's so lovable. Okay. So, Derek and Claire, we talked about them a little bit. They ultimately end up in 3rd place. Gives a pretty strong showing for Derek and Claire this week.
Yeah, strong showing. I wish I had kept the tweet up so that I could attribute it to the right person, but somebody tweeted a picture of Derek as the Lord of the Latrine and said that medieval games are right up his alley.
Yep. He is a medieval gamer for sure. So, good job there. Jess, it's amazing now that you mentioned it as a Survivor challenge, the like pulling the ropes to make the ball go up the thing. Officially, that I believe that first appeared in Big Brother, famously in Big Brother 16. And if Mike's listening, he can correct me on this. Famously, it came up when that in a challenge where it was it a battle of the block that Frankie Grande was about to get thrown under the bus by his alliance, the Bomb Squad, and then Beast Mode Cowboy told him that, hey, it was a 2-person challenge, so you had to, like, with your partner, you had to like make both of you held one side of the thing, and Beast Mode Cowboy, it was like a betrayal. It was like, Frankie Grande, I'm not helping you. And he sat down on the ground. And then Frankie Grande had to do it all himself. But it was actually much easier for him to do it himself because instead of there was no teamwork required, because if you're holding both ropes, you could just, it's much easier to like know what your right hand is doing and your left hand rather than working with a partner. And then so he actually won that challenge by himself. And since then, Survivor has really adopted this to be a big thing through many of the seasons. Famously, it's been the challenge for both Edge of Extinction seasons to get back into the game. And so all through the 30s of Survivor. And now I believe, Jess, it makes its first appearance here in The Amazing Race.
Who knew that this challenge was going to be the first one to achieve the CBS trifecta?
Yes. But Jess, now you are so much more of a knowledgeable historian than I could ever hope to be. You know facts about all different historical periods. Are you really trying to tell me that in medieval times, in medieval society, this was a game that people were playing to pass the time?
I really had a lot of issues with fun fact Phil this episode.
Yeah.
Like this is the most questionable task intro since Phil tried to tell us like his fun fact about Italy is that it's shaped like a boot, which P.S. he's done several times. Yeah, life in medieval times wasn't easy, so people invented games to pass the time. And while they're dying of scurvy or whatever, they're also trying to throw a beanbag on top of a pillar.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
put these rocks on a plate and balance them.
Yeah.
I
wasn't
question
buying
the
that.
veracity of this. Like this is some SCA stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Phil playing fast and loose. Okay. All right. Here's Phil's intro for this detour.
Medieval times wasn't easy, so numerous games were invented to pass the time and were also used by knights in training. So when soldiers weren't out on the battlefield fighting for their lives, it was in their best interest to hone their skills, practicing their aim, eye-hand coordination, and balance. Teams must complete.
Okay, so basically, this is like some kind of like training camp for medieval knights was to practice these carnival games.
I feel like you should be jousting or something.
Mhm.
Maybe not like stacking rocks, but yeah, I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a knight.
Yeah, sparring or something like that. It's like, no, toss the beanbag. Can you move the ball and not get it in the holes, sir?
Yeah, I think table maze was probably not high up on any knight's like list of things he had to do to earn his stripes.
Yeah, I gotta see. Maybe House of the Dragon. We'll see some of the people
Like,
working on
noted
that.
historical document, House of the Dragon.
Okay. All right. Emily and Molly, we talked about how they're learning more about each other. And look, despite the injury, look, another second place finish.
Yeah, I mean they're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Glenda and Lumumba out, like this has to be the team that I'm rooting for the hardest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, strong showing. Nothing super memorable outside of feeding egg yolks to the dog, but here they are.
Rob, your homework for this week is to feed an egg yolk to your dog and see what happens.
I'm just worried that they're going to the dog having gastrointestinal distress is, we work very hard to keep everything going the way it's supposed to be going.
Come on, Rob, for science.
For science. Maybe half a yolk.
Okay, half a yolk.
We'll see. Are you a big hard-boiled egg person, Jess?
Oh, I love hard-boiled eggs.
Mm-hmm. What do you do? Just go hard-boil them up and then just have them anytime?
Yeah, salt them up. I like them on salads.
Yeah, I do this in a salad. Recently, I've done hard-boiled eggs in the air fryer.
That's interesting. I've done them in the Instant Pot. They're pretty good in the Instant Pot.
Yeah. In the air fryer, 275, 300 for about 12 to 15 minutes.
Nice.
You have to, because make it boiling the water takes up a lot of time.
That's true. But if you cook them the right way, like start them with cold water, then bring it up to a boil. And as soon as it's boiling, turn it off. Like that's how you make perfect eggs.
Okay. All right. Lots of the hacks here. Okay. Better
Look,
than
we
easy
are
bake
trying
battle.
we're trying to be educational here, Rob. We're doing a public service.
Yes. Is it educational?
Educational, yes.
Okay. That was for you, Mike. Okay. And then finally, Marcus and Michael talked about their struggles, but also their incredible success winning this leg of the race.
Yep. They came out on top, and I have to give it to the editors. I was not expecting that.
What was their prize?
I don't remember.
Yes. Phil also really teased the pit stop location. Panorama. Look, this is a great vista that you'll remember this forever. Except for one team that will remember this place as where their
where dreams go to die.
Yeah, where their dreams have died. They will never forget this dream became a nightmare.
Yeah.
In
Everyone
this panorama.
Everyone who had a beautiful, memorable time in Dordogne, step forward. Not so fast, Glenda and Lumumba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And that is episode number 7 of The Amazing Race. Jess, so we're going to expect the teams to continue in France. Presumably, another team will be eliminated, right?
I mean, they gotta be. I
Mm-hmm.
think they're gonna tout the mega leg as much as possible if there is another mega leg, which I assume there must be.
I think there has to
maybe
be.
not next week, the week after, I think we're gonna look to a mega leg.
Because we're gonna mega leg all in one location, right? Like I feel like
Right.
it would be very impractical to mega leg. Okay, here we're gonna race in France and then mega leg the other half, where when
Yeah.
we go to Poland or
Yeah, the
wherever.
transcontinental mega leg
Mhm.
is not a thing.
Yeah, you got all mega leg in one place. So I think that we'll probably have another elimination next week, and then probably a mega leg after that.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. I do like the sort of separation where we have like a country leg and a city leg,
Mhm.
where we can have two legs in the same country as long as they're very, very different. If we stayed in the countryside and we were talking about castles again next week, I might get a little bored.
Mhm. Okay. All right, Jess. Anything else about this week of The Amazing Race?
No, it was fine. It was a solid episode. Stuff
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, the teams are great. I think the teams are really carrying it when the tasks are not anything to write home about.
Yeah. Oh, well, I thought this was a lot of fun. To everybody in the audience, I hope thank you for your patience that I'm a little bit more cracked than normal after a long couple of days on the road. But I had, look, I can't speak for everybody, Jess, but I had a lot of fun.
I did too, Rob.
Yes. Apologies to Shamir.
Yes. Again,
who,
it is not personal, sir.
speaking of cracked, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I hope that it's okay to talk about this with the having some time separating the two events, and I hope your balls are okay, dude.
Yeah, and in fairness, that I don't think we ever, even though that he didn't say anything to Jess in the restaurant, I don't think we ever heard from him directly, right?
No, we didn't hear from him directly. That is true.
Were we doing exit interviews in that era?
You were, I think. Maybe you weren't. I don't know. I like this is only the second season where I've gotten to do the exit interviews.
No, but I feel like that we were doing them from earlier than that, right?
Yeah, you must have. You must have done exit interviews.
Okay. Did it come up?
Because remember, Rob, in season 25, we got snubbed.
Yeah, so yes, I do remember earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So oh boy. So
We're gonna have to look that up.
Yeah. So I gotta look it up and see if that really happened. Okay. All right. Yes. So let's see. From April 26, 2017, Shamir and Sarah talked the amazing race. But that's not with me. So I gotta see. I don't know if
It's not with you.
I don't know if they snubbed us. I don't know.
They didn't snub us. We would have we would be hitting this a lot harder if they had snubbed us.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe what was going on in April 2017? Okay.
All right. I do
I
not
don't know.
remember.
I don't know. Maybe some RHAP historians can tell us about that. All right. Jess, what's coming up for you?
What's coming up for me is next week is the penultimate episode of The Walking Dead. Like really 2 more episodes of The Walking Dead flagship ever. And so AJ Mass and Josh Wigler and Chappelle and I will be talking about that, getting you ready for the series finale, which is coming up in just 2 short weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Yes. Jess, will it be like a 4-hour episode?
I can't imagine they get away with a normal length episode, but that's what's on the schedule.
Okay. All right, pretty cool. What else is coming up?
I think, well, this past week we should talk about all of the fun stuff we did around the mole to wrap things up. We did our mole series, our mole season 6 finale podcast, and then we got a special guest dropped by on that coverage in the middle of our live show. And then we got to talk to the great Christian Hubicki, who is a mole super fan and who really just needed someone to unpack all his mole thoughts onto. And so we made him an honorary patrol member. And then we talked to Greg from the Mole, and he had a lot of insights into the show and how things worked and what we didn't see behind the scenes.
Yep. Had some fun times getting more into the Mole. And so, again, appreciate the Mole Patrol having me as a member of the team.
Welcome to the squad, Rob.
Yes. Thank you. Jess, I'm looking at our Amazing Race 29 podcast, and I don't know if we did Exit Press that season.
Maybe we
or
didn't.
maybe they didn't have Exit Press. Well, I guess they did something. I don't know.
They must have done Exit Press.
I don't know. I don't know what
This
was
is
going
weird.
on. I don't know. Maybe it was like on during that was it on Wednesdays and that I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been like it interfered with your Survivor Exit Press, so you said you didn't want to do it.
I mean, that doesn't sound like me.
No, I don't think you're not one to turn down work.
Yeah, I feel like I'm crazy enough to have wanted to do it if it was offered to us, but maybe they didn't do a lot of Exit Press for that season. I don't know. All right, well, we'll see if we can uncover that mystery. Thank you all so much for listening to us here today. We have got our exit interview with Lamumba and Glenda. Check that out up on our YouTube channel as well. And then everything going on with Survivor this week. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.